Welcome back to the Ableton Music Producer Podcast. This is Dan Giffen. Today we have an awesome guest. Her name is Ceci Gomez. She's a Los Angeles-based experimental music producer and keyboardist. Her credits include collaborating with some great artists like Charli XCX, Baauer, Rebecca Black, The Regrettes, Francisca Valenzuela, Lunice, Nasty Cherry, many others. She also is a part of a new duo project called DAGR with co-producer Veronica Jane. A lot of good stuff today. Ceci and I talk about her experience playing synth and running Ableton Live for Charli XCX while supporting Taylor Swift's major tour. We talk about tools for remote collaboration that were used during the pandemic and how we use those with other producers. Talk about her process collaborating with a lot of these great artists. Talk about some other weird studio workflows like reamping. We also talk about some of her interesting live setup for this major Taylor Swift tour she was a part of and doing playback engineering. A lot of good stuff today. Before we jump into today's episode, I have to give a huge shout out to Melodics for supporting this podcast. If you aren't familiar with Melodics yet, check them out. Go to melodics.com. It's a desktop app that you can download to your computer, plug in almost any MIDI controller or your electronic drum set, and practice finger drumming, playing scales. Maybe you suck at piano like I do, and it's a good way to practice your scales and have fun with a large variety of genres and lessons to help you become a better keyboardist, finger drummer, playing drums, whatever MIDI controller you have. Download the app. It's free to download. There's a free trial. We love free things, so give it a try. You have no reason not to. Also, if you decide to join their subscription and have access to a lot more content to grow your skills, then use the discount code LPO-20. That's LPO-20. Save that money. Also, if you want to be the first to get new episodes and other Ableton Live training and content and stuff that I'll be sending your way, then join the newsletter. Just go to liveproducersonline.com/newsletter. And would happy to see you jump in the email list. I'll send you some stuff and try not to spam you. Also, if you don't own the latest version of Ableton Live, I'd be happy to hook you up with a deal. Just go to liveproducersonline.com/buyableton. And yeah, without wasting any more time, let's jump into today's episode hanging out with Ceci Gomez. Yeah. My nicest mic I don't use for podcasting because it can pick up a fart like 6 miles away.
Yeah. It's like a really harsh fart.
Yeah.
It's like the highest frequencies of the fart.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm already recording. This is super laid back. How's LA treating you?
Oh, it's great today. I'm loving this weather. Just digging the vibe. This morning I woke up and it's pumpkin spice season, baby.
I'm into that. I do love a good pumpkin spice latte. I'm drinking a Guinness right now that's been in the back of my fridge for like probably over a year and a half.
Oh my God.
I found it. I was like, it's really warm out today. A cold beer sounds good. But as I'm drinking it, I'm wondering if this is the best decision. So
whatever, pop off.
Yeah, live your life.
Yeah, pumpkin spice and a Guinness, like one is the same to me.
That's hilarious. So how long have you lived in LA? Because you were from Houston, right?
I'm from Houston. I've been in LA about 5 years
So
now.
Why the move? Just for music, I assume, or?
Yeah, I mean, I at this point have I feel like I've been a bit nomadic and have lived many lives. I've been in a lot of places. So I grew up in Houston. And then when I was 18, I moved to New York City. I went to NYU and
Cool.
I lived there for like 5 or 6 years. And then I had kind of like had it with New York. And I was like, I'm going to move to Pacific Northwest. And I moved to Seattle knowing one person, my best friend, Cassia. And I lived there for 5 years. And then there kind of came a point where I was like, yeah, like, you know, I feel like I know everyone in the art world here. They're all great. But looking, you know, I didn't really do well with the rain, to be entirely honest.
Yeah.
I wanted to do more like producing and writing for other people. And LA is just the spot to do that, you know?
Yeah. LA is definitely way more laid back than New York City. I lived there for about a year going to Dub Spot. So we were pretty close, maybe even close to the same time, actually.
Yeah, that's on the west side, right?
Yeah, Chelsea, Manhattan. So it wasn't too far from NYU because that's in the East Village or closer to, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I used to go to Criff Dog for like late night drunken hangovers. It's like this like greasy hot dog that's like topped with all this goodness.
One of my my bandmate Glenn at the time when I was in school there, she worked at Criff Dogs. So I got unlimited free hot dogs for like a year, and I got so sick so often.
Yeah, I can't imagine why. That's worth it though. It was a great place. I'm vegetarian, and I would still go back there and eat.
Have a lot of veggie options. I also was vegetarian at the time.
How did you get into Ableton Live? This is the Ableton Live podcast. You went to NYU. Were you studying music there?
Yeah, I actually was in the Clive Davis School, which is for like music production and engineering and business. So I'm very lucky in that regard, in that I learned how to use a bunch of DAWs in school. But I definitely first used Pro Tools for a really long time. And I was more into rock music and was recording bands and stuff. And so Pro Tools was my go-to. And then Logic was for a long time. And then I started getting into electronic music, and we had briefly learned like Reason and Ableton in school, but like they didn't put a lot of emphasis into it. So I decided to dive into Ableton after school when I was making my own electronic music. It just seemed to make the most sense in like a really fluid way. And also when I was starting to do some live shows with it, it's obviously just the easiest to use.
Yeah.
A lot of using tools live is my nightmare.
Yeah. I mean, back in the good old days, that's all they had, right? They used to call people like the playback engineers back in the day space bars. Because that's literally all you could really do in Pro Tools. You just hit space bar.
I just remember like loading external VSTs for like soft synths and things like that in Pro Tools, and it would just crash every time.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, struggles could be real. It's come a long way for sure. But speaking of live performance, you were, I don't know if you still are, but you were touring with Charli XCX. As her synth player?
I did, in fact.
Awesome. Yeah. How was that?
It was fun. I did it for the duration of the Reputation tour, the Taylor Swift tour that she was on, that she opened. And it was wild. It was a stadium tour that it was kind of like a thing where, I've never been a hired gun in anyone's band. And there are very few circumstances that I would want to do that.
Really?
In my life. Yeah, I like toured a lot. And like, when I moved to LA, I was like, cool, I'm hunkering down in LA. But Charli was like, do you want to like go on this tour? And I was like, heck yeah, that sounds fun. Stadium tour with Taylor Swift. Why not? So yeah, it was a wild ride, an 8-month ride.
Was that like your first major tour that you've done?
I mean, that's definitely like the most major tour I've done in my life.
That's pretty big. That's pretty cool.
I'll ever do at this point, unless like Beyonce came to me and was like, heck yeah, let's go.
Yeah, I would say the same. I wouldn't say no to Beyonce either. Were you just playing keys? Were you doing any kind of playback in Ableton? Were you using Ableton or laptop?
We were using Ableton. We were blessed in the realm of playback in that, Charli has a playback person and his job is to just be on the playback. Like when you're doing that level of tour, like things cannot fuck up, Yeah. Because, her music is extremely electronic. And so the MD for that tour, Drew Taubenfield, who is an amazing MD. He MDs for like, I don't know, like just Demi Lovato, like the biggest people out there, like you name it, and it all. He like plays in Casey Musgraves' band sometimes, I think.
Oh,
I don't
cool.
He's doing all kinds of stuff. But basically when he got the job, he was like, whatever you want to play live, like it's up to you. And we'll like, I'll take out tracks and certain things because there's so much backing in a pop thing like that. That I was able to pick and choose kind of what I wanted to play, which was really fun for me.
Awesome.
I kept it. I was like, I need to make sure, even if it's hard, I want to make sure that I'm challenging myself every night because I know it's going to get old real quick on an 8-month tour.
Oh yeah.
So I had a sub 37. I was really just supporting bass lines that were already there a lot of the time.
Okay.
Crazy in a stadium. It was just bonkers.
Oh, I bet.
Oh
yeah. Especially with the sub 37. I have one sitting next to me. I love that thing. It's thick.
Oh, and it's just like but we had that. I played that, and I also had just like a Kai MIDI controller because what I would do is like if there was a part in a song that I really liked, either if we had enough like isolated stems, I would resample the synth part and then like play it with my own sampled sample of it.
Okay.
Or I would in Ableton.
Yeah.
Or I would make my own patch that sounded as close to that synth as I could find, and then the playback dude would take it out of the mix. So kind of worked both ways in that way.
Yeah, I've had to do that with some of my songs. So just to understand, you would take the actual stem that they gave you for that bass line or whatever, you would like drop it into Ableton sampler or simpler and then just like play it back live.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's a great way to like keep your computer happy too, rather than playing the actual plugin if there was plugins used or anything.
Yeah, there were some VSTs that I like recreated with like A.G. Cook, who produces the majority of Charli's stuff. I've worked with him a couple times, and I remember when we were working together, he was like, I use Razor and Serum on everything. And so when I was trying to recreate patches that I couldn't get stems for, I would just open either one of those up. But they were eating up for a live, even though if it's only one VST, I just like don't like taking the chances. So I would just freeze and flatten the audio of like one note from Razor or Serum and then use the sampler again.
Yeah.
And luckily, like, that didn't degrade the audio that much.
Right. Especially if you unwarp it too. I know for anybody listening that maybe doesn't know that as well. Yeah.
And it worked out great. I mean, we had like a system where there was a backup of the computer, you know? So if anything like failed in Ableton, it would automatically switch over to the other computer.
Yep.
Also with like my own, like if the Moog stopped working for whatever reason, I had recorded a backing track of me playing my Moog part that would automatically, like I had my little mic on stage to the front of house dude and I'd be like, Moog's not working. He'd be like, cool, I'm going to pop up the backing for the Moog.
Nice.
So that it, didn't sound any different.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of safety nets in that scenario, which actually taught me a lot about that. Cause like I'm actually music directing for Rebecca Black now. And
oh, dope. Yeah, I saw that.
I'm like, okay, cool. Like I learned so much on that tour that I didn't even realize I was taking with me until now. I'm like, these are the safe-proof things we need to do to make sure that the show goes smoothly and all this stuff. So
totally. Yeah, it's nice to have like an army behind you when you're going on tour, just to like take care of all these sound issues that could and possibly might happen. Yeah, for sure. Do you know Laura Escoda? I took her play. She's in LA. She was the first Ableton certified trainer, but she has like a team called Electronic Creatives. She's been on the podcast, and she teaches playback engineering with redundancy. Like you were saying, if a computer fails, you have the other one switch. So I learned that from her. She's brilliant. Yeah, she's a queen of the Ableton world. You should connect with her down there since you're in the same neighborhood. She's super cool. But anyway, yeah. So who was the person doing playback? I'm curious. I might know them for that tour.
Oh my God.
Wasn't AJ or Greg?
He lives in Nashville.
Okay. Maybe not. I still might know him. That's kind of close to my head. That's cool.
I can't.
No worries. Yeah. So Rebecca Black, she's come a long way since Friday. I honestly feel for her in some ways that like, I went to her Facebook because I saw that in your accolades and I started like following her on Facebook and stuff. And then people are still talking about Friday. I was like, poor girl. She just can't get away from those Fridays.
But, she's embraced it. And she
has. She's changed her image a lot. And like, she's got some really dope music. I was like listening to her new stuff. I was like, yeah, this is good for her. She's still doing it. It's awesome.
She's an amazing artist and one of my favorite people to collaborate with, to be honest. And
yeah.
She's a dear friend. Yeah.
That's awesome. How did you meet her?
I met her, I think it ended up happening through Pulse, who's my publisher. They help set me up with a lot of stuff. Half the time
Cool.
it's just meeting people, half the time it's through Pulse, or sometimes just DMing people. I'll slide into an artist DMs if I really want to work with them. And that has actually been effective.
Yeah. Yeah. I imagine living in LA too. Like it makes it easier to connect with people like that. So you also worked with Baauer. That's interesting as well. How did that happen?
I can't really remember, but like that was one of those like sessions that we did a couple sessions over Zoom in the pandemic. And like it's been interesting. And there's obviously like a lot of negatives and a few positives in that when working with producers like someone like Baauer or like Lunice that I've worked with over Zoom a few times, it's actually really easy to just have like your DAWs running at the same time and I was using audio movers a lot.
Yeah. The listen to plugin.
Yeah. And we could both kind of like, you kind of just like keep the loop going the whole time. And then once there's a vibe established, then the way I would do it is there would be someone who's like the master of the file. So for one song, I was like, okay, cool. Like I'll be the master holder of the files and you can just send me files via like Box or whatever during the session as you do them. And then I'll put them into my session as we're going.
Mm-hmm.
Vice versa. Like Harry would do the same thing where I'd like send him over stuff. And that's a really cool way to like pump out ideas.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice because you're both in your like natural environments where you have your gear and your setup. Sometimes it's a bummer when I go over to another producer's spot and for some reason, it's like the spot is like lacking inspiration or there isn't gear or certain things. And it's fun, you know?
That's why you got to have plants, right? I see you have some nice plants in there.
Gotta have plants.
I have a cactus way back there. You can't really see him. His name's Herman. Yeah. Oh yeah. And I had to prop up with some chopsticks, my other plant, because I didn't have anything else to hold it up. So I shoved some chopsticks in there and just like taped him to it. Yeah. Yeah. He's going strong. Did you ever, speaking of collaboration during pandemic times, did you ever see or play with mixed in keys satellite sessions? I don't think I've talked about that on the podcast.
No, what is that?
It's basically like a remote way that you can in real time. Well, I guess it's not super real time, but it's a plugin. So you would load it in the DAW and then I would load it in the DAW. We would both log in. So you have to have internet connection. And then I would, in that plugin, I would drag a MIDI file or an audio file that I recorded, and it would instantly upload it into the cloud into your session. So then you could download that straight into your project. But it's like Satellite Sessions is basically its own DAW inside of Ableton. And then you can just see everything and play it real time. It has very limited editing capabilities, but it's a really fast way to share files in real time in the same session.
That is really fun to check out. There was another one
it's free.
Pedal, which was kind of similar in that you would just drag the audio file in onto Pedal and it would automatically create like a instantaneous like download link.
Oh, cool. I haven't heard of that. I'll have to check that out. It's called Pedal?
Yeah, it's a French company. I was doing a session with a producer in London and he was like, I've been using this. And I was like, cool. Like it's
fancy.
Fun during the pandemic to like have all these like random things crop up and you're like, I never thought.
Yeah.
It actually is working strangely.
It's true. I think it made a lot of companies have to like shift or become more innovative in a lot of ways. I've never been a big advocate of like Splice for their collaboration because I feel like sometimes the freezing of files sometimes has been weird for me, but it's a great free backup in my mind for sure.
Exactly how I think about it. Although definitely don't ever rely on it because there have been sessions that like are corrupted or something. I lost a file 6 years ago and I'm like, okay, let me like get on my Splice and see if it's on there. And I've tried to open stuff up on there and it's just empty.
Yeah. No, that's happened to me too.
save. So it's just not really, I mean, I have like, so many backups through like Google and Box going now, like external as well, which is probably too much, but
never enough. It's never enough. I've learned the hard way. You got to back up your backups. Yeah, that's why I collect all and save 15 times now, like when I'm done with a project. Yeah. So as far as like, let's nerding out like with plugins and devices and instruments, like what are some of your favorite go-to effects or workflows in Ableton?
Like the ones that are pre-existing in Ableton?
Like native Ableton stock stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I love, I've actually really been enjoying like the hybrid reverb on the new Ableton is so cool.
Yes.
And I feel like it's just like an endless universe of different things that you can do with it. And like I've been bringing in other samples into it to create like my own like custom verbs and things. And that's been really, really fun to use. And like how long has Ableton 11 been out?
It's been like close to a year, hasn't it?
I had the beta before that too. And it was.
Yeah, I think the beta came out like a year, February 23rd, 2021. So Live 11 came out.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I'm messing with that for the last almost year. And that's been really fun. I definitely have like go-tos as far as like, the bit rate chopper, whatever it's called, I will use often to like degrade sounds. And
the bitrate chopper. What is
the bit rate? Oh, God,
is it an instrument or an effect?
An effect.
Oh, is it like buffer shuffler? That thing's weird. That thing's cool. That's an old Max for Live thing. There's pitch loop. That's pretty cool too.
I'm looking. Oh,
you can revert to our wonderful browser.
Whatever. Well, whatever it is, but I'll also use like the OTO Biscuit Bit Crusher as well if I have extra CPU too.
Oh, okay. That's a plugin?
Yeah. It's not an Ableton plugin though.
Right. I'll have to check that out. I still love plugins.
I mean, I've been using Glue Compressor for a super long time. It's highly effective. I pretty much have it on like every track, and I have it like I now have a template that I use every time, and that'll have like the Glue Compressor, the classic like EQ, reverb, the classic on it.
Do you use the EQ3 ever?
I don't use the EQ.
I know. I think I've maybe used it once, like 5 years ago.
I feel like I'll accidentally click it sometimes, and I'll be like, I didn't mean to click that.
Yeah. No, there's some interesting things you can do with it, though. Who was it? I think I saw, it wasn't Chromu. Who was it? Somebody on the podcast was talking about like a really weird way of doing like almost kind of a weird bit crushing effect with the EQ3. I have to go back through and check that out. It was weird. Yeah, I'm going to go back and find that anyway. Hey, so I couldn't remember what I was talking about, but I think it's worth interrupting and mentioning that the EQ3 is pretty dope. Kermode, who was on the podcast a while ago, mentioned taking that device, creating an audio effect rack, and then mapping the frequency, the low and the high frequency controls to a macro, and then duplicate like 10 or 15 of the EQ3 device, and then put it on like a fat synth bass, and then automate sweeping it up and down. Sounds wild. You guys should try it. And I put a link in the show notes to that YouTube tutorial. Anyway, back to the podcast. I'll post in the show notes, everybody, a link to that video. So it's cool. I haven't had enough coffee today, apparently.
I've been enjoying the new phaser flanger.
Yeah.
Been built out a bit is like, I feel like also just has like infinite possibilities. And
yes.
I love to put it on all kinds of random things like drums or a weird synth part or a vocal.
Mm-hmm.
And the same with like that Max plugin, the pitch loops plugin.
Yeah.
Pitch loops. It has like a number after it.
Pitch loop 89. Yeah.
Okay. That's been super fun on a bunch of vocal chop stuff that I've been doing recently. Just because before I was using the beat repeat a ton, and I still use it, and will mod it and do fun stuff with it. But I feel like the pitch loop function has like, it just has so many more things that you can do with it. So
Totally.
like, so wild. That was like, reverb is just like completely bonkers. I can spend hours just like finessing and automating different things.
Yeah. I haven't spent a lot of time with pitch loop, but in those short moments I have, it's just generates really weird, bizarre results that are like kind of fun. Like just a granular synthesis pad.
I'll just like have it going for a really long time. And then from there, I'll like flatten the audio and then like chop it up and use whatever.
Yeah.
It are, you know.
Love it.
I've been loving, I have a push and I use like the scale functions on it every day.
Too.
And it's been, in the pandemic, it was a nice way to expand and move into other scales I wouldn't normally use. And then there's like even more scales in the scale function within the MIDI effects that has even crazier scales that I've never heard of. And that's
totally
fun to use as well, just when I'm trying to get new inspiration.
Yeah, honestly, I had kind of a revelation today. I was working on a live set, and speaking of that, I was using my push too. And I used to use a device called Scale-O-Mat that like would automatically set the scale, so incoming notes would be locked into the scale no matter what you played. But I realized that, say for live performance, if you create like a blank MIDI clip and then you turn on scale and set the scale in that clip, whenever that clip is selected, whatever clip's selected, it automatically changes the isomorphic keyboard to that scale on the push too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I was like, this is dope. I didn't realize that was a thing. So yeah, for live performance, it's super helpful. If you're jumping between scenes or whatever, different songs, it automatically just locks in the pushes scale. It's based on that clip.
Use clip mode during live performances. It's like my brain could never, I think it's because I used Pro Tools and Logic for so long, like going into clip mode just really stresses me out.
Yeah. Session view is like a whole different animal. I don't know. I feel like I only visit there when I'm going for a live performance thing, because that's really what it was made for.
Yeah, for sure.
Otherwise, I'm just sitting there looping for hours at the same like 8-bar loop. Yeah, pretty much. It's a good idea generator though. I mean, you have your newer projects. If I was on Spotify, I was listening to it. I was like, yeah, this is really tight. And you've had some good collabs on your most recent album as DAGR.
Thank you.
Did I pronounce it right? It's DAGR, right? Yeah. Okay, awesome. Yeah, when did you started that recently? Like what, like 2 years ago?
Yeah, I started it with my friend Veronica, who's another producer in LA, engineer. She's dope. And that kind of just happened through us making a bunch of beats together. And then, you know, in session world in LA, you know, we're doing like 3 to 5 sessions a week with a bunch of different artists. And there's always like all these leftover songs that I feel like end up in this like ether of nothingness. And there were ones that I would love or that B would have made that she loved. And we would find ways to like over beats that we had made or like that we made in collaboration with someone in the room. And we were like, you know what? Why don't we just like take these and put our own like DAGR sound, the sound that we make together and make a project with it. So a lot of the songs like we had already made with artists previously, and we went to them and we're like, hey, can we work on this? You know, morph the sound to be more our sound and put it out with you as a feature. Or we would create an instrumental and then like find an artist and be like, hey, would you want to collab on this and sing over this or be part of this? So it was cool to be able to, and some of the songs too, I had made with, I think there's the one with Warhol. I had made that beat with another producer that isn't even DAGR, my friend Tate X, who's an amazing producer in LA. And then I was like, wait, actually, Tay, like, I love this beat. Can this be a DAGR thing? So there's just kind of like, it's an infinite universe of like potential collabs. And really fun to be able to carve a space for ourselves, because it's hard to do that when you're producing and writing for other people full time, you know?
Oh, totally. Yeah. But no, you're right. I think a lot of producers, even listening right now, probably have a ton of extra dusty files on their hard drive that they're just sitting on that may never be resurfaced that could turn into a collab or another track with somebody else.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like sometimes I'll maybe like once a year, I'll like dig through all the stuff I made in a year, which is so many songs. And I'll be like, oh, wow, I actually really love this idea or this song. Like I would love to work on this and see what I could do with it to take it to the next level. And sometimes it's just a matter of like being away from it for a year in order to realize how great it is.
Yeah. Well, it seems like you're pretty well rounded because you sing, you're a keyboardist, you're a beat maker. Do you intentionally seek out collabs with other people of like a certain skill set to complement you, or you just kind of like free flow, go with whoever, whenever?
Yeah. I mean, I think the longer I've been out here in LA, it makes you, because there's so much talent here, it makes you highly aware of your strengths and weaknesses. And my strengths lie in arranging and melodies and lyrics and freaky sounds. So when for some reason, freaky sounds really just has always stuck with me.
That's cool.
In a session, if like, it always like really depends on who the artist is and like what somebody is looking for. But like, if I was working with let's say like a trap rapper, I would be a good person in the room in that I can create cool, like melodic loops or mod things to sound a little bit special and like weirder than normal. But I wouldn't say I'm like a great beat maker in the trap space. I would want to bring in another producer that's like specifically like crushes it in like FL or like some program that was like, they have it on lock with drums,
Yeah.
Or like I've been working with this artist B Miller a lot recently. She's a great pop singer and she's been wanting to make more rock oriented stuff. And while I do play the guitar, my guitar skills are somewhat limited and I'm aware of that. And
same.
Bring in a dope guitarist to round that out. And, I will be overseeing it and being like, hey, maybe I can call out like progressions and like theory things, but I know that is not where I shine. And so a lot of times I feel like my job is also like curating the people that will be in the room that will make it potentially the best song possible.
Yeah.
And I'm doing that. I think it's really fun. And I love bringing in all these different personalities. And sometimes it's smooth sailing and other days you're like, wow, that was a fucking mess. But
yeah, a little off topic, but it is something I am curious about is at what point during the song creation process do you have a conversation with that other artist about royalties or split payments or anything with the song? Because I always feel like there's nothing more of a buzzkill when collaborating in the studio than talking about that. But it is, I think, something that's kind of important. Not that we always get into Ableton to make money. Obviously, we're doing it for the love.
Yeah.
But hopefully, maybe it's nice to make money too, though. Pay rent. It's always good. So I don't know. Is that a conversation you have like after a song's finished? Is this something you bring up with people in the early process?
You never bring, unfortunately, I wish there was a world where you could bring it up earlier, but it really does ruin the vibe to talk it in the room.
It's true.
So it's something that's definitely sussed out. Usually it gets sussed out like if the song is going to come out. Like you don't even talk about it unless the artist comes to me and my team and they're like, hey, we're going to put this out. Like, how does this sound?
Yeah.
And that kind of sucks in some ways because I lose a lot of power in that regard. But unfortunately, the music industry is like just built in a really fucked up way. Like I love to get paid for every session that I do. I wish that the standard was that there was like a base rate that producers get paid per session, or at least overhead for like my studio space that I pay a lot of money for and like all these things. But in the pop world, unfortunately, you can try to fight for a great advance if you can, like, but then again, like advances and things like that really depend on like obviously what personal money the artist has, kind of label, or who knows what other financial stuff is going on. So a lot of the times those things get sussed after the fact, and they'll be like, oh, you can split the master with me or something like that. And money with streaming or syncs and things like that if they do well. But like there's no guarantee ever on anything.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of horror stories, and I've heard a lot of good stories. It varies a lot between whether there's a label involved, definitely, or independent artists just hustling and having fun. Yeah, interesting. We talked about some of your favorite devices, like hardware. Do you have some favorite hardware in the studio?
I have a Moog 1, which is pretty epic.
That's pretty dope. How long have you had that?
I've had it for about 2 years now, and I love it. I like sold all my other synths in order to get it. I was just telling my friend Kieran Waters, who's a producer, like 2 days ago, because he came over and he was like, I can't believe you have that. Like, because I guess I've been seeing them in some studios that I go to, but not as many, because it's such, it's really fucking expensive new, but like,
totally.
Somehow, like, I had set an alert on Craigslist years ago because my friend Vicente Sanfuentes, who's a great producer, he has one in his studio, and I was playing with it, and I was like, this synth is so crazy. Like, I need to get this synth.
Oh yeah.
Like, how much did you get it for? And he was like, well, I got this Moog discount, but it was still like, I don't know, like $7,000 or something. I was like,
yeah, they're not cheap.
Yeah, and I set this alert, and then this guy posted his Moog, and he was selling it for like $5,000 or something like that. And I hit him up, and I was like, I'm such an asshole. I was like, I will pay you $3,000 for this Moog. And he was like, ha ha, yeah, right. And then I don't know if you've ever gotten this. I would venture to guess this is because I'm a woman, and this happens to me often as a producer. I always feel like I have to like prove myself. And like, he was like, well, if I know you're a serious buyer, like, can you send me like some of your like work so I can hear it? I was like, this is insane that this guy.
Really? He wants to hear your music before he gives you a hella discount.
I'd be like, fuck off. But I want this Moog so badly that I will do whatever. So I like sent him some stuff, and he was like, oh wow, I'm like so impressed. I was like, okay, bro. He lived in like, I don't know, he lived somewhere. It was almost like 2 hours away. So I like drove there, and like, I don't know why this guy had a Moog 1. It just like still baffles me. But like, it was a sad story in that his dog had passed away, and he had all these vet bills he had to pay retroactively, like after the dog died. And he was like, I can't afford this Moog anymore. So he sold it to me for like $4,000.
Wow. Yeah. That's a deal. I just looked it up, and on reverb.com, it's 7,000.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got a deal.
It had a 2-year Sweetwater warranty on it.
Oh, that's even better.
Oh.
Yeah. Sweetwater's probably still calling you, asking if you want to buy more stuff. They do that pretty well.
I need lollipops in the mail every day.
I do appreciate the Tootsie Rolls. I always get a lot of Tootsie Rolls when I order from them. Yeah. Shout out to Sweetwater for their candy.
Phone calls.
Yeah. I remember just like my Sweetwater rep would call me like 12 times a year. And one time he asked how my kids were doing. And this was my rep for like 2 years. I'm like, bro, I don't have kids. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, oh yeah, sorry. It's like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Stop calling me. Anyway.
Yeah, that's definitely my number one baby girl in the stew. Looking at I have this beautiful 12-string Hofner acoustic guitar that has a pickup on it that I got at this really cool vintage guitar shop in LA called Old Style. For any LA people, you should definitely check it out. It's like locally owned and really cool.
Okay.
I love to like plug that in through like different pedals, and it sounds so wild. It's just so beautiful sounding.
Yeah. Is that what you were using for reamping? I saw your TikTok video.
I was just reamping through like a Fender amp that I have.
That's dope. Yeah, for people who don't know what reamping, you want to maybe explain it?
Yeah, it's just like taking the audio from your DAW and like plugging it into an external amp and then recording what's coming out of the amp back into your DAW.
Yeah.
It's something I think I did in school for the first time, and my mind was blown, and it still is blown when I do it. I really enjoy doing it if I'm looking for like a crunchy sound, or I don't know. Sometimes I'll like reamp stuff, and I like to just mangle sounds. So for me, the more mangled, the better.
Yeah.
I don't do that enough. I think for DAGR, it's a great space for us. We have the time to really like explore sonically.
Yeah.
Times I find that when I'm working on stuff for other people, I don't have that time. But when it's for myself, I'll go there and do that, because why not?
Right. There's no rules. I think that's really dope though. I mean, that's something I want to do more for my own music as well. And even if like, say you're reamping something, it doesn't turn out fantastic, there might be something else when you're in that mental space of just trying something weird that could lead to something else that's more creative and sounds really dope.
Sometimes stuff through like it's like a little Korg Chaos. It's a little like the mini Chaos pedal thing. You could just like stuff through that, and I'll like kind of go through like the different presets of effects and then mod it as I'm going through, and just like record it for like 30 minutes or whatever of that loop. And
is
then
K-oscillator? Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Those look wild. I've seen those. I haven't played with it.
I don't really use it that often. Again, it's like one of those things where if I have to have a lot of time and be in like a mood to want to like go through and like hear audio. But every once in a blue moon.
Yeah. Why not? So for your live setup with shows, what does your live setup look like? Do you use any pedals on stage, or just mostly just a laptop controller?
So for DAGR stuff, we are really just DJing. We're just using CDJs. After the many bands that I've been in and touring I've done, I kind of am at a point where I'm like, I don't want to play shit live if I don't have to. So really we're just like glorified DJs, and I like I have like an SP 555 that I used to use in an electro pop band.
Yeah.
And the thing has like been with me through everything. I think I've had it for like a decade, and I got it when I remember I saw some YouTube video forever ago, or I don't remember what it was, just like hearing one of the members of Animal Collective was like, this is my go-to, when I was like 18 or something. And I was like, I got to get one of those things. But it's so great for just like storing samples and like modding samples with like the cheesy built-in roll-in effects I actually love, even though like
nice,
so bad. Like the flange stuff, they're so bad that they're good,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
we're going to start bringing that in to just like fire off random ass samples live. But we mostly just CDJ. I have some CDJs in my studio and have really, in the last 6 months, been super into just DJing and just like downloading a bunch of music and enjoying listening all the way through to songs.
Yeah. I feel like it's so much easier to prepare a set list when you're just downloading full tracks and mixing them into each other.
Totally.
Although I will say, like, I still kind of like some of that creative control in Ableton. Like, for example, if a song doesn't transition out well just because of the way it was produced, maybe it just like dies and just ends, rather than hard cutting. Sometimes it's nice to be like, well, maybe I'll add like a sweep out of this and little things like that. Right. That's true. If you have a mixer with a built-in fax. Yeah, that's true.
Like the Pioneer mixer. But the thing is, like, if you're going to do a set somewhere, most of the time, like, they have CDJs as a backline anyway. So it's just really be able to show up and with your USB and be like,
yeah. And if you get too drunk afterwards, all you have to do is worry about that little thing in your pocket. That's it.
Backup. So
yeah, it's true.
I've been using, for Rebecca's stuff, I'm still using Ableton to launch tracks.
Okay. So are you her playback engineer then? Is that like,
Yeah.
okay, awesome.
You're in DJ right now.
That's dope.
Yeah. I think eventually it'll probably be something like once she's doing more like longer tours and stuff, that I will pass off to somebody else to do, like if she's doing like longer extended tours, and just MD it remotely and do it that way. But for now, I've just been DJing and it's actually been really fun. Like just doing that live, just thrashing on stage.
Yeah. My girlfriend thrashes on stage. She's a DJ too. She's been teaching me some CDJs. And it's funny because like at first I was like, oh, I'm Ableton certified trainer. I could figure this out real fast. And I like failed miserably the first time I played CDJs. It's really bad and embarrassing. Yeah.
A whole different skill set. And
It is.
it's like learning a new instrument, it's,
Yeah.
but obviously like you have the foundation of like, if you have rhythm, you can be a DJ. I feel like it's a lot harder when you don't,
Yeah.
at like CDJs and vinyl DJing. Obviously with Serato, like you don't need any of that. It'll just do it for you.
Mhm.
But there's something, I mean, I just love like the tactile feeling of like spinning it and like hearing if it's behind or ahead. I just love like that moment when like everything clicks and you're like, yes, I can layer these kicks on top of each other. I get so excited when I can like play 2 tracks at the same time for 3 minutes and it makes a whole new song,
That's always a good feeling for sure. Are you a sync button user, as they say?
On CDJs?
Yeah.
I am when I can, but I have the 2000s and
Okay.
it have the sync feature on it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of annoying, but at the same time, it makes me grateful for the newer ones because then I'll go DJ somewhere and they'll have the newer ones and I'll be like, yes.
Sync.
Alright.
Done.
But sometimes sync doesn't always work. Like it'll be off by a little. And so don't always, a note for the folks out there getting into it, don't always trust that sync button because sometimes like it doesn't capture the transients properly.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure too. It depends on the song as well.
100%.
Yeah, it's funny because I see people on Twitter who are like into these sync wars. They're like arguing with each other, like, well, you shouldn't use the sync button if you're a real DJ. And I was like, nobody gives a shit. The crowd's dancing either way. Like if nobody's out there in the crowd, like, 5 beers in at a rave and they're like, oh, I bet he's using the sync button today. Like nobody cares.
I used to be so precious about all of that stuff. And
Yeah.
as I get older, the fuck's given. Just
No fucks given. Yeah. It's a good attitude.
I'm like, I want to have fun when I'm like performing live or DJing. So I like to challenge myself if I can.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So what's the latest and greatest upcoming projects you have with DAGR or Rebecca or other people?
Well, DAGR we're actually working on finishing up. We've been calling it an EDM EP. I don't think it really falls into the clean box of EDM. It's definitely like an electronic EP. And there's like whiffs of like dubstep or like really hard house or like a glitchy like hyper pop moment. But it's kind of like existing in a bunch of different universes. Like as I listen to it more, I'm like, wow, this song kind of sounds like Justice, or like every song to me is so different.
Yeah.
I'm stoked to finish that. We're fingers crossed, like hoping to get it mixed next month and are going to start rolling out singles for that in January. And
Cool.
It'll be cool. Like we have a song with Rebecca and Brooke Candy, and we have a song with this artist Liam, this amazing UK rapper, and this rapper Bailey. Lunice is on a track, and then the rest of the tracks are just psychotic tracks that Veronica and I
Awesome.
out of our own minds. And we're just really stoked to basically it came from like we had a dub lab show in the pandemic that we did for like a year. And
Cool.
so we were making mixes for that once a month. And the combination of that and starting to DJ live again, realizing that it's more fun to make music that you can DJ to in a club. And
Yeah.
so that's really like the goal of this EP, is to make music that we can DJ to in a club. Our last album was, you know, it's all over the place and I love it so much. But some of those songs like just don't work DJing them live. And we've tried recently and I'm like,
like, nope. Yeah.
Album, you know, at home or when you're driving. But
yeah.
Really stoked for that. DAGR wise, there's a new Rebecca Black stuff that's going to be out on her next album that I'm really, really stoked about. We're starting to like integrate some of that into her live sets, and they're really, really fun. Dizzy Faye also, I'm working on a lot of her new album, which is
I saw that music video that I don't think it came out too long ago. It was called, was it Womp?
Yomp.
Yomp. Yeah.
Yeah. She's an amazing artist based she lives in LA, but she's from Minneapolis, and she's just this force of nature artist. Yeah. She can rap, she can sing, she's hilarious. Like she can dance. She's like such a good dancer. I think she's going to be a star.
Oh yeah. I mean, it looks like she's doing pretty well. I started following her on Twitter after I saw that video and that track you guys did together. That Yomp video is wild. It was good. It was really well done.
I love it. So we're working on a bunch of new stuff for her upcoming project. I've been working with this Dominican artist, Esty, who's really cool. She's making kind of like left Latin music. And I've been working a bunch with Love Leo in the last couple of months. He's a really cool, signed to God Mode. He's so talented and just has such good taste. Like every time we'll work on something, you know, I like to start a session asking an artist, what have you been listening to? Like, what's the vibe? Turn me on to some new things. And every time comes, he's like 21 or 22 now, maybe.
Wow.
Every time he comes in, he's like, you know, he'll go back. He'll be like, this is this like Orbital song I've been listening to, or like the Simeon Mobile Disco song, or these deep cuts. Or he'll be like, he's the person who introduced me to Tizo Touchdown like 6 months ago, who's this incredible artist out of Houston who I'm very obsessed with now because of Leo. But he is such a cool artist in that he listens to so many things. Or like he was like, let's make this part of the song to sound like that one Cornelius song, who's this Japanese artist from the 90s, you know? And I'm like, I'm so happy that like, who are you? Like, this is so cool that you're like just down to do all this freaky stuff. I live for that.
It's cool.
He is also one of those people that's just, he has so much talent just oozing out of him.
Yeah. I love finding people like that who are not like super, super famous, because there's a lot of them out there. Just like other weirdos who are just full of talent. Yeah.
It's, you know, makes me want to keep doing this is when I'll work with someone that just blows my mind. Because it's easy to get jaded, you know, being out here for a while. So I work at this point, I work on like preserving my like emotional energy in sessions and not like saying yes to everything at this point. Cause like I want to be inspired by the people that I work with. And if I can try to keep that going every day, I think I could do this for a lot longer.
Yeah. I mean, you only have enough emotional and mental energy to put into so many things, right? So I find that the more you say no, sometimes the more successful you become.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard for a Libra out there that just wants to say everybody, you know?
I'm a Cancer, so apparently I'm a people pleaser. So I have to fight that all the time too.
Yeah, it's tough out there.
Yeah, especially in a market like LA, because it's pretty intense. But you're doing awesome things, and you know, I followed you on Instagram. I'm loving the tracks that you're putting out. It sounds like you have some really awesome collabs in the pipeline. So congrats on that. And yeah, we could wrap this up. We're almost to the hour, but thank you, Ceci. This has been cool. This is great hanging out with you. If you find your way into Denver, hit me up. Come by. We can make music and drink really old beer out of the back of my fridge. Also, before we sign off, where's the best place for people to connect with you?
Probably Instagram. It's just Ceci G official. CECIG official.
Cool. All right. Just the gram?
I guess so for now.
Okay. That's pretty much where I spend most of my time these days.
Not really on Facebook or Twitter that much.
Yeah.
I'm on it sometimes, but I have a private username, not just so I can troll everybody,
Yeah, right. Just leave little flame emojis and move on. Yeah, that's how I do it. Yeah, there's a lot of social media out there. I don't have enough time to sign up for like 15 different sites these days. But
I still am. I just forget my username for all of them.
Yeah. Well, I'll include links in the show notes, everybody listening, as always. So go follow Ceci. Yeah, this has been dope. Thanks for hanging out. Best of luck with future projects. And I'll have this episode live, I believe, this Tuesday, unless I tell you otherwise. It should be this Tuesday.
Sweet.
So,
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Stay in touch.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Have a good week.
You too.
Peace.
Bye.
Thanks everybody for listening to the podcast. Make sure you give Ceci a follow. In the show notes, you'll see links to all of her projects and things. If you want to join the newsletter, be the first to get new episodes, go to liveproducersonline.com/newsletter. Also, stay tuned every Tuesday. I'm going to be trying to drop a new podcast episode every Tuesday, so check back then. Follow, like, subscribe, leave a review if you don't hate the podcast. And it would mean a lot to me. So thanks everybody for the support. Much love. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.